Colin Whitehouse, Senior Advisor at CLG. What I want to talk to you today about briefly is some of the principles that have led us to where we are at the moment. Some of the generic truths we've found out working with some authorities and REAPs around service transformation, and some ideas about the support principles in general. And that should take me about 15 minutes, and then I'll probably leave time for questions at the end. Okay, a bit of a busy slide there. What we've tried to do there is encapsulate where we think we are with public sector transformation at the moment. Not expecting you to read through all of those or to understand all of those. I certainly don't myself. But I do come from a local authority background, and I remember when I was with my local authority, which happened to be in the West Midlands. And we always heard about new initiatives that were coming along, and we'd be taken away and locked in a darkened room somewhere and told there was this new initiative that was going to change the world, and then we'd be sent away to prepare for it, and it really didn't make a lot of difference. And then we'd hear about another initiative that was coming along. But now we do seem to have a whole host of policies and strategies and documents that really focus on one core principle. And that is that the public sector and public sector delivery should be all about customers. And it may seem strange to use the term customers in this context, but I don't want to just focus on citizens, because the public sector does have responsibility for businesses, and we do need to address that too. And really all of these customers simply care about outcomes. We have this structure around public services. I mean, quick hand count, how many of you individually live in areas that are two-tier with county and district? Yeah, a number of you. Well, you'll know from the citizen perspective, just talking about local government, that the perception of individuals is it's often just the council. Sometimes the bloody council, depending on whether the bins haven't been collected or whether you've got to pay your council tax or whatever it happens to be. But there's no great understanding of which tiers deliver which particular services. I think you'll agree with me there. And equally, by extension to the whole of the public sector, there's very poor perception, certainly in the more complex service delivery areas, about which parts of the public sector deliver which components of a particular service. But the way we've been set up traditionally is to expect individuals to understand that. And part of the principles that we're trying to move towards is to break that down. And to give you an example, and this is very aspirational, and it's transformational government strategy stuff. I mean, David's already mentioned the National Improvement and Efficiency Strategy. Another good read is the Transformational Government Strategy. But an idea of what we're trying to get to there is to say that, say someone went to visit the doctor and was signed off work for 6 months. Well, the way things have been, if that person then needs other services from the public sector, benefit, care, whatever it actually happens to be, there's an inbuilt perception. We expect that individual, often at the time of their least capability, to understand which services are available to them, who delivers them, and how they access them. And that just doesn't feel right. And what we're trying to move more towards is, as these people really just care about outcomes, is to try and join all of that up together with local authorities, with other delivery partners too, to say, can we get to a situation whereby that person, say, visits a doctor, is signed off for 6 months, and that automatically triggers other appropriate services to be pushed to that individual at that one point of contact between the individual and the state function. Now, clearly that's very aspirational and we're some way away from that. But the idea of improvement, I'm going to overlay efficiency on this shortly, is to try to create that 180-degree shift. So instead of individuals pulling services that they require, to push the appropriate services. And there's some very interesting work going on that will become apparent to you, I'm sure, during your time as liars. I really don't like that term. I just can't imagine John Healey, the local government minister, standing up in front of the press and saying we're funding 100 liars to go out and work with local authorities. But good one. So Over that, of course, down here we've got a quote about CSR, Comprehensive Spending Review, CSR 07, the current round has already been mentioned. So not only do we have to try and reorientate the way that we deliver services and work more cooperatively on a multi-agency basis, we've also got to try and save 3% while we're doing it. And I remember a couple of years ago speaking to a room full of accountants and saying there are ways in which this can be done. Basically, if they'd have had rotten tomatoes, they would have thrown them at me at that particular point. And they were saying, if we're going to improve service delivery, it's going to cost us more money. If we're going to save money, we have to cut services. And what we're trying to do is move away from that mindset. And largely we have, to say that by proper service transformation, looking at the effectiveness of the way that people work, trying to add value into the way that people work, we can achieve the efficiency savings and improve services as well. So, say, quite a complicated slide, but it encapsulates the strategic and policy reasons why we're trying to move to where we get to. So, citizen-centric delivery, perhaps we could encapsulate that as spending more on things that people want by doing and spending less on what they don't care about. And often that equates to effective frontline service delivery and doing less of administrative tasks and things that people really don't care about. And I suppose if we were to do that, both in individual authorities and across partnerships, then we ought to be able to deliver the efficiency savings as a natural consequence of making those improvements. So some of the things that will be involved there is to improve the end-to-end delivery chains in terms of service delivery and the jobs that comprise them. Again, not thinking in terms of something that an individual organisation does, but the realism that that end-to-end process, as far as the customer is concerned, involves many agencies working together, and how do we streamline that? To ensure that improvements are aligned to the performance environment, again, I don't know how many experts there are in the room around the performance framework and local area agreements, local strategic partnerships, but the way the government has tried to move there is to create targets not based on the process, so answering the phone within 5 rings or something like that, but base it on outcomes, so that the improvements and performance is measured against making real differences to real people that live out there. And so we must also make sure that our activities are aligned to the performance framework, which should make a real difference to real people. And as I've said, remembering that citizens see services, they don't necessarily see the individual organisations who deliver components of that. Again, aspirational stuff, but it's where we are moving to, and with increasing rapidity, I have to say.